Rodriguez.
An incarcerated individual at California Men's Colony, Santa Rosa Vista, California. This call into our telephone number will be monitored and recorded. You have a prepaid call. Thank you for using Global Tel Link. Hello, Mr. Rodriguez.
Hey, how are you?
Overwhelmed, heartbroken, stressed, angry, enraged, pissed off. Yeah. Tired of it. Tired of the abuse by government employees upon citizens who don't deserve their abuse.
So let's get to the nuts and bolts and why.
Let's explain it from the beginning for people who may not be unfamiliar with what we've been experiencing.
Current state of affairs, so people understand why we're feeling what we feel, and then we'll go backwards. I think tell me that. So our whole summer visits, literally, that she's been looking forward to for months, has been canceled by the warden of this institution, Andy Stanfield.
They're deciding that family members cannot see each other. Because why?
Yeah, right. All the money that you spent in airfare, housing, food, the family package, it's just all in the trash now. And Lily has been crying all morning, Dad, because we had our visits canceled over what appears to be incidental contacts between you and a staff member named Smith during a conversation you had when you touched him on the wrist.
Yeah, his hand was on the counter. Let me explain that. So he was like this to me, and I had been speaking before, and he went like I was over here to his right, and I was talking to him, and he wouldn't turn and look me in the eye. His hand was sitting like this on the counter, and I just tapped him like excuse me, like you might tap someone on the shoulder to get, if they can't hear you. This is normal human interaction.
No assault.
Oh no, it was just the tip of my, my fingertips, just a nanosecond on the hand.
I was in the shower shaving this morning at 8 o'clock when my tier officer approached me and said, hey, they're calling you to the program and they want to talk to you. And when I got there, two completely uninvolved guys explained to me that the warden has canceled our visits for 60 days. And they don't know why. And I explained to them that there was an incident yesterday when I didn't have the shirt.
And they wouldn't provide it one.
And both of them seemed very much to empathize with me and thought this whole thing was complete bullshit. I could see that the sergeant was somewhat crestfallen by what he was having to do. And when he realized the reasons for it, he was just like, I don't know, man, I wasn't there. That's crazy. I don't know what happened, but this sounds like, and the cop shared it. He knows me, and he's a really decent ass dude. You can see that he cares. He gives a fuck about people, and they just thought this was bullshit. So, I have a series of questions to ask you before I try to strategize about moving forward. So have you ever received instruction, either verbally or in writing, to the effect that you may not touch a correctional officer?
No, in fact, we've touched hands before. We've shaken hands with staff members there. And a staff member might approach.
There because I want to do this strategically. That was going to be one of my questions. You said earlier you couldn't come up with an example, but I think I can.
Yeah, I've shaken hands with people there.
Any guidance, written or otherwise, to the effect that you cannot touch
A hand.
a correctional officer.
Well,
Right?
yeah, and I didn't know I couldn't touch a hand.
Right. So please let's keep this okay. It is fully legal, and
I have never received any of that. No, I have not received. I have never received any instruction, verbal or written, clarifying any of this. No, I haven't. I had no idea I was breaking some rule. Say that again. No, it did not say that anywhere that I'm aware of.
Didn't say that. Posted on walls anywhere where you can see it on your way in.
No. Mm-mm.
So, have you ever been touched by a correctional officer, either in a pat-down search or otherwise?
Yes, I have definitely been touched.
And your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
The staff there have definitely touched me.
During the one IFC meeting you were allowed to attend before Lieutenant Robinson spoke to IFC members Lori Adolph and Carol Hines to torpedo your IFC membership. Did you or
Inmate
did you
Family
not
Council
shake
is
hands
IFC.
with members of the CDCR staff?
Yeah, I've shaken hands and I've been touched by the staff members there on a number of occasions. And in normal human interactions, hands may, people touch hands. Well, that's normal human interaction.
Do you recall during that IFC meeting in February whose hands you shook? Or who was
I know N. Gauguin, Nathan, I don't know what his first name is actually, but
Nathan Gauguin.
I've definitely, yes.
During the shirt and pants that I had to wear to visiting yesterday on Health Free Shawn when I graduated ARC. I'm standing in between him and the warden, Danny Samuel, who also took zero issue with the same clothes that I wore yesterday to visit him. So you've shaken Chief Deputy Warden Nathan Gauguin's hand. That's correct?
Yeah, and he initiated it. I've also been,
Okay.
touched by staff when I'm checking in. And they're
Okay, but that's for security purposes.
yeah, and I think
Was there any other person whose hand you shook?
I'm trying to remember. That day it was just again when I attended the Inmate Family Council meeting earlier this year.
There wasn't a woman named, I want to say Heather Shirley?
I did not shake her hand. She was there. I did not shake her hand that day. No.
The warden Danny Samuel, was he there?
He was there. I did not shake his hand that day. But Gauguin approached me and offered his hand.
At the time, was he there?
Sorry, who?
The public information officer.
He was there, and I've touched his hand as well, which he initiated.
Okay, so the reason I asked the follow-up questions is to illustrate a point. So that on that day, in front of the very same warden, so let me go a little bit further. Was Lieutenant Shawn Robinson present for this meeting?
She arrived very late to the meeting, but she was partly present.
So she wasn't there for the greetings. Was Sergeant Stewart present?
She was not there. No, she was not there that day.
Okay, fair enough. So what I want to establish, where all of the world can see, is that on that day in February, you shook the hand of the Chief Deputy Warden of this institution, I assume at his request or invitation.
He walked in, approached.
In front of the warden, Danny Samuel, and in front of
this call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
In front of another associate warden who was present, and also in front of the public information officer, who may or may not have been the same one that you spoke to yesterday. And not a single one of them told you that that was inappropriate or unallowed contact. Is that correct?
Yes, I've touched, they've initiated hand touching in the past with me, and I have never been told that was not allowed.
This is a very specific example. Let's be on topic. You shook the chief deputy warden's hand in front of those three people, and they had no objection on that day. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That is correct. But then yesterday, after having protested something that you felt was wrong, that very same warden turned around and barred you from visiting, cost you a bunch of time and money, and broke your 7-year-old daughter's heart over incidental contact. Is that safe to say?
That's correct. And that's Warden Danny Samuel, California Men's Colony in San Luis Obispo.
Yes. Okay, so my next question is, in that conversation that took place yesterday with Officer Smith, who lives in the local community, who lives around San Luis Obispo and works at CMC,
California Men's Colony.
who can no longer
Let's be careful with acronyms.
Members, brothers and sisters and parents, that he comes to work and he does his work ethically and morally. Did he object in that conversation to your touching of him?
No, he said nothing. All I did was a brief tap to get his attention, and he did not let me know that was problematic whatsoever. He did not say anything. No.
Okay, so in the moment, he seemed to feel that there was nothing wrong with your interaction with him.
Yeah, it was obvious I was just trying to get his attention so he'd look at me. It was just a brief, normal human interaction, yeah.
Right, so then it would be left to us to figure out if he was later browbeaten and bullied to saying that he feels offended or violated by that. Maybe by Lieutenant Livingston, who tried to paint you as threatening him before you left, when you told him that you would go public with what you experienced, or possibly by Sergeant Valencia, who seems to be offended by what he said. I felt my brain was bigger than his. Is that the conclusion you might come to?
Sure.
But I mean, if you have a different conclusion, definitely state it.
My conclusion is actually that it was Shauna Robinson calling all the shots and sending other people to do her dirty work. Yes, she was absolutely there. She was absolutely 100% on duty. Lieutenant Shauna Robinson at the California Men's Colony was calling the shots yesterday, along with E. Livingston, 2 lieutenants on duty. Sergeant Stewart was not there.
Okay, so for the larger audience listening, I'd like to point out that this is a very common practice by the CDCR, and I'll use an example. Several months ago, after Officer Montez initiated a problem with me, and then when I wasn't cowardly enough for her taste, she handcuffed me and drugged me out of visiting, tried to manhandle me, tried to convince me that what I did was wrong. When I asked if there was a written rule saying that I can't ask her for clarification when she gives me a very ambiguous order. I was later found not guilty of the rules violation report that she falsified, saying that I was engaging in behavior that could lead to violence, because I never did. And the 3 videos proved that she was lying.
She fabricated lies in an official government report.
Never once been punished for this.
Staff misconduct was reported. They dismissed it.
Yard. Let me please paint this picture. A few weeks later, she worked on my yard.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
I saw her talking to other correctional officers about me, pointing me out in the crowd, glaring at me. I'll call back and I'll finish explaining this, because I want the public to understand this tactic. It clearly was used yesterday. I love you. Bye.
Bye. I'm just going to keep this live going here. Hi, YouTube, and anybody watching this. I'm a criminal justice reform advocate. I spent 15 years in government, and I really think government should be a force for good in the world. And 4 years ago, I started studying America's criminal justice system, and there's a lot of human rights abuses taking place. Our government is victimizing citizens. And this is just another example how we're being personally retaliated against for telling the truth of the abuse. We're experiencing whistleblower retaliation. And Lieutenant Shawn Rodriguez is definitely at the helm of that retaliation. That's clear to me. She's repeatedly abused us while we were at the California Men's Colony and done all she could to make our lives harder. It's absolutely unacceptable. I think she needs to be screened for antisocial personality disorder. I think something is wrong. Something is off. She's very abusive. And so is Correctional Officer Montez, who Shawn was referencing. They break up our calls into 15-minute increments and repeat the same announcements over and over, wasting our time.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. You have a prepaid call. Thank you for sending Global Tel Link.
So you'll remember that I had an incident with Officer Montez. She lied in her reports. I was found not guilty. She works overtime on my yard. She points me out to other staff members, glares at me and talks about me to them. I ignored all of that. I came out in the afternoon with my workout partner, and we went to a shady, quiet corner of the yard where we would not be bothered, where I've worked out off and on for 2 years, absolutely zero problem from anybody ever whatsoever. And we began to do our burpees after we stretched and warmed up. I kind of kept an eye on what Montez was doing. I watched her get up out of her seat, come over to the track area so that she could see what I was doing. She called another male staff member over. I watched her pointing at me. I watched her talking to him. I watched her point at me some more, talk about me to him some more. I watched him try to turn his back on me because he clearly didn't want anything to do with whatever she was doing, weaponizing her femaleness and attempting to trigger his machismo and get him to save her. And then finally, he had enough browbeating, and he apparently was waving at us to say something to us. I was trying to ignore him. I kind of wanted him to come speak to me on his own so that I could have his presence without her influence. And the kid who was working out with me said, hey, they're calling us. And I was like, dude, why would you do that? So I stopped what I was doing, and I walked over to where he was, and I said, what's going on, man? And he said, you can't work out over there. And I said, well, it's not out of bounds. There's no red paint on the ground. He said, yeah, but there's a fence there. And I said, yeah, we're not.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
We're not touching the fence there. And if that's been there for 50 years and there's no red paint on the ground, nobody's ever thought that was a problem. He said, well, you can't work out there. I said, come on, man, we just want some shade. There's no other shade on the yard. Oh, well, there's shade over there. I said, that's in the middle of traffic. We can't do burpees there. By this time, my workout partner showed up. And he started to say something. And I said, hey, look, man, let's just get out of here before we get a write-up. And what I wanted to point out was that Montez set all of these wheels in motion and then stood there silently, acting like she had nothing to do with it, when I clearly watched the play happen in real time. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to detect this stuff. It takes a little bit of experience and observation. And so this is the tactic that is employed so that she has deniability, but she has other correctional officers superbidding. And it would not be out of the realm of probability that a similar thing happened with Lieutenant Robinson yesterday. Because aren't we having filed a complaint about her being the one that investigated our misconduct complaint about Montez?
I have not submitted that. I have not finished, and I have not submitted that complaint about Shawn Rodriguez and Montez, but it's close to done, and I'll be submitting those citizen complaints and those reports to the OIG, the governor, the head of CDCR. That's all in progress.
Okay.
But there is a pattern of retaliation, especially if Shauna Robinson is involved, and she's exceptionally hostile. Oh, let me share real quick too, that yesterday, once I was kicked out because they wouldn't give Shawn the shirt they required him to wear. They said I asked to speak to the warden, and I asked so many people to please call the warden. No one would do it. And so they told me I could talk to Lieutenant Robinson. And I said, I don't want Robinson. She's hostile and abusive. I've had bad interactions with her. And then they said, that's the only person you can talk to. That's it. And I said, well, if I'm going to have to talk to her, I'd like to be able to sit down, because she just, I'm worried about my health having to interact with someone so abusive. And because I said I'd want to sit down, yeah, I'm on blood pressure medications now. Oh, there's my alarm going off to remind me to take it at 10 o'clock. So yeah, because I said I'd need to sit down if I have to interact with this abusive, hostile staff member I've had many problems with in the past. Because I said I'd need to sit down for that due to blood pressure concerns. They called an ambulance, and and they were going to put their hands on me. They were pressuring me to let them check me. God, I don't know if they're going to plant bullshit on me or what they're going to. I told them I refuse. I do not consent. I told them not to call the ambulance. It was absolutely unnecessary. It was so inappropriate and unprofessional, uncalled for. I asked, are you going to charge me for this? Just, it was absolutely ridiculous. I felt repeatedly harassed.
And to me, your reputation in front of your peers embarrass you and pressure you by ridiculing to leaving quickly without saying much more. These are all very common tactics used against the inmate population.
They all need body cams. What they're going to
try to do now is they're going to try to criminalize you to take away your credibility in the public forum as well.
That's going to be pretty hard to take away my credibility.
It's like when somebody gets fired for being a whistleblower, and then that whistleblower gets attention from the public, and then they just call that person a disgruntled employee with an axe to grind and says that everything they say is untrue and made up while they're grinding their axe because they're a disgruntled employee. They're trying to make them dismissible, and that's what they're going to try to do here. I mean, they're already able to dismiss me. I'm just a piece of shit inmate. But
should we talk about?
There's you to consider.
Should we talk about the consequences on us for their choice a little bit more?
Sure.
I mean, I've had to get on blood pressure medication. I have health concerns because of the retaliation and abuse from badge wearers, government employees at the California Men's Colony. I mean, I bought 2 cross-country flights for me and my daughter to be able to see Shawn, paid for lodging, have car payments, obviously food, eating out while we're traveling. I mean, it's thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, plus all the emotional stress, the physical toll that this abuse causes on me emotionally, mentally, the physical strain it adds as well. My daughter.
Let's try to make this a real tangible thing. How much did plane flights for you and Lily back and forth cost?
It was about $2,000 round trip for both of us.
So total or 4,000 total?
2,000 total.
Okay.
And I'm paying $130 a night I'm paying $130 a night for this place. And we had planned to be for 4 weeks. We had planned to be in California for 4 weeks. Okay. I can't get out. I mean, I've already prepaid for this. I can't get out of it.
$3,200 plus. How much do you think you spend in food a day? for you and Lily.
Well, God, it depends. If we're in the prison, it's going to be extremely expensive because they double, triple charge
But
us
you're not.
market rate.
But you're not.
I mean, I'd estimate it's maybe like, let's call it $100 a day for us, the two of us, to eat.
$2,800. Plus, how much was the family visiting package we won't be able to use now?
About
That they forced us to
$250.
buy. That they forced us to buy.
Right.
Okay, the rules in the Department Operations Manual require that this institution shall provide like something like 5 entrees for breakfast, 5 entrees for dinner. Like, they shall provide that to us, but they don't. They never offer that. They force us to buy these packages. How much did that walk-in horse package cost?
It was about $250, I think.
Was $250 equals $82.50 divided by the 11 visits equals. So for each day of visiting, they have cost us $750 net cost to you. Now I see it this way: Dick Cheney, while he was in the Clinton administration cabinet, who receives a profit from every access package you buy me, who receives a profit from every money transfer through the Keefe commissary company that gets done, who receives a profit from every commissary purchase that is bought through the Keefe commissary company, so who definitely had a vested interest in making sure prisoners stay in prison for longer, as much as possible.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
He helped to pass, and so did Joe Biden, the Prison Litigation Reform Act. And that makes it nearly impossible for me, as a prisoner, to sue for damages anybody with a badge that does anything wrong to me. They could beat me within an inch of my life. They have qualified immunity. If I don't become a lawyer within X amount of time and figure out how to file a complaint and overcome all the barriers so that I can fight the entire Attorney General's office to try to receive some sort of compensation or justice for what happened to me. That's all the Prison Litigation Reform Act. It prohibits me from doing anything about this because I haven't received actual injury. I don't have a broken bone. I don't have a concussion. I can't sue. There's nothing I can do about this. But you, as a free person who have received a tort by state officials who clearly have done something wrong here, what they have done is not within the bounds of reality. We'll get into the law about it here in a minute. I've got the current Title 15. I looked up what they've done. They don't really have standing. You can sue them for compensatory damages to the tune of 750 days. $750 per visit that they ruined. But also for punitive damages to ensure that they don't do it again. And I definitely encourage you to seek out that guy you met at
CrimeCon? Ben Crump?
Ben Crump. I don't know if we have enough of a tan to get represented by him or his people, but I would hope that they take diverse cases as well, that they would be equal opportunity and see a wrong where there is a wrong and see an opportunity to correct a wrong and receive attorney fees for that. That would be great. Well, and if not, then hopefully some lawyer has the balls to help you take on CDCR. I don't think it's quite honorable that the other things happened to you when you lost your job over standing up for me. And lawyers don't feel like helping you with that. That's just odd to me. But I definitely encourage you to talk to that guy, Ben Crump, or if there's anybody listening who is a great lawyer and who sees an issue here and wants to help, that would be awesome too. So, do you want to continue with what you were saying, or should I jump into the law of this?
Go ahead.
Okay, so let me open this thing up. This is the California Code of Regulations, Title 15, Crime Prevention and Corrections. The rules and regulations of federal institutions Programs and Parole Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, updated through July 2023. It is the freshest version that they have provided to us. Visiting is covered in Article 7. So I'm going to jump right into 3170.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Standards of conduct for inmates and their visitors on page 128. That's where I'll pick up when I call back. Also, I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to finagle some way to put me in the hole or put me on C status or whatever mechanism in order to get me away from the phone to shut me up and stop me from telling the world stuff like that. So, just everybody be ready for that. If that happened, clearly you can see malintent. I haven't done anything wrong. That's why my cell repeatedly gets searched, and I never get in any trouble. Like, I don't do anything wrong. For 2.5 years, I've been in this same cell. I never get in trouble. I'm in trouble now. That's really suspected.
We're about to get cut off.
All right, I'll call.
I want to clarify for anyone just to be able to follow. So Shawn and I live on the East Coast. Shawn's in California. I flew cross country with my 7-year-old daughter, Shawn's stepdaughter, to have a summer together, to visit regularly. And Shawn didn't, they have some new rule that says you got to wear this specific kind of shirt and pants. And Shawn said, well, I don't have one. Can you provide me with one? And they refused. And so we don't get our visits. And I text a staff member like this to get his attention, and they're saying I put my hands on it all.
Have a great day.
Shawn Rodriguez.
Incarcerated individual at the California Men's Colony, San Luis Obispo, California. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for. Thank you for using Global Tel Link.
Okay, so going straight to section 3175, standards of conduct for inmates and their visitors. Inmates and visitors shall comply with all laws, regulations, institution procedures. Any violation may result in denial, termination, suspension, restriction, revocation, and visiting as described in 3176. Accompanying adults shall ensure minors remain under the cost-controlled supervision. Nursing mothers shall be discreet and covered when breastfeeding their children, etc. That has nothing to do with us. Inmates and their visitors may hold hands at the beginning and end of each visit. Visitors may briefly embrace and or kiss, and we always take issue with the word briefly. Like, what does that mean? It's so subjective. An inmate may hold his or her minor children. Inmates may also hold minor children accompanied by an adult. That's weird. We've been hearing that can't hold children over the age of 5. Except as provided in this section, no other bodily contact shall be permitted. Okay, so those are the ground rules. 3176, denial, restriction, suspension, termination, or revocation of visits and exclusion of a person. Let me glance through this and try to find anything that actually matters. The director or institution head may, for cause, exclude a person from entering institutions or facilities in this department. All such actions are subject to the provisions set forth in this article. The official in charge of visiting may deny approved visitor access to the institution, terminate or restrict a visit in progress for the following reasons. 1, the visitor appears to be drunk or on drugs. 2, the prisoner does not provide ID. 3, visitor refuses to submit to a search. 4, conduct in violation of institution/facility procedures, including excessive physical contact. That's between you and me. Refusal to follow staff instructions. I don't think you did that. Disruption of the visiting/processing area. Doesn't sound like you did that either, and in either case, that's not what they're accusing you of. Destruction or alteration of visiting documents. That's got no bearing on this. Or any other behavior that would constitute a misdemeanor or felony, or repetition of less serious violations in disregard for a warning about such violations. Were you arrested and cited or told you were charged with a misdemeanor or felony yesterday?
No.
Okay. It's unlikely that that will happen. The visitor is not appropriately dressed. You made it inside. You were obviously appropriately dressed. The visitor is under 18 years old, and that has no bearing on us. The visitor has a medically implanted or prosthetic device. That doesn't matter. The visitor requires the use of a wheelchair. Nope, that doesn't apply. The maximum capacity of the visiting area has been reached. Nope. And there are no other. Oh, the institution head. No. Written notification shall be provided to the visitor when action is taken by the official in charge of visiting to deny, terminate, or restrict the visit. The written notification shall contain information instructing the visitor how to appeal the action as outlined in Section 3179. Have you received that?
No.
Institution head or designee may revoke or suspend and approve visitor's future visits for a specified period of time for the following reasons. Information which would have resulted in disapproval of visits becomes known after approval the visit has been granted. That's clearly not the case here. The visitor has been involved in a serious violation or multiple less serious violations of CDCR regulations. Do you feel like that is applicable?
Wait, say it again.
I have not seen it. The visitor has been involved in a serious violation of multiple less serious violations of CDCR regulations.
Oh, hell no.
Given that they have shaken your hand in the presence of the warden before, I feel like that can't possibly be a violation.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Of CDCR regulations.
Yeah.
Okay?
Oh my
Visitors
God.
to participate in sexual activity in a visiting room, that obviously didn't happen. The ranking custody officer on duty or the official in charge of visiting may restrict visits but may not deny visiting as a temporary security measure when an inmate is scheduled for a hearing on a serious rule violation or for classification on an order for placement in administrative segregation. Subsequent disciplinary classification committee action will supersede any such temporary action. I don't think that applies. The visitor violation process is as follows. This is section 3176.1 of the California Code of Regulations, Title 15. Any person seeking entry into an institution for the purpose of visiting an inmate shall be subject to all applicable laws, rules, and regulations. Any person violating a law, rule, or regulation while visiting shall be subject to warning, termination, suspension, and or revocation of their visiting privileges as described below. And this is important. I hope people are listening to this. A, warning. Visitors may be verbally warned about violations of applicable law, rules, regulations, or of local procedures governing visits. When a verbal warning achieves corrective action, a written report of the misconduct or warning is not necessary. This is what is called progressive discipline. And if there is no progressive discipline, the more serious discipline is not allowed. So did you receive when you touched Officer Smith on the wrist or hand?
No one told me I had done anything wrong.
Warning.
No one told me. No one said anything. And there were a bunch of people standing around too. There was like probably 5.
So you received no verbal warning?
No, nobody
You
said
received
anything.
corrective action.
No, when I tapped his hand to get his attention so he'd look at me, nobody told me I had broken a rule. And clearly there was no harm caused. And this is an example of when they will throw the book at you and cause as much harm, and they'll say you broke a rule, even though like it's some game they're playing, some technicality. No, we've had a good rapport. Like this, Smith and I have had a nice, friendly rapport. We had spoken about 30 minutes prior when I asked him to call the warden. I was speaking to him directly and he wasn't looking at me. And I was just trying to get his attention to make sure he knew I'm talking to him. So I just tapped his hand briefly. And now they've written up a report saying I placed my hands on an officer as if I beat him up or something. What?
They do that to prisoners all the time. They beat the whole fucking shit out of us, and then charge us with felonies and fabricated reports about it. So, like, you got off easy. Isn't that ridiculous that I have to say that?
I wasn't beaten up, so that's always nice.
You still have all your blood in your body and all of your teeth, and none of your bones are broken if you're not charged with a felony and spend the rest of your life in prison. You were probably going to get out months from now. Now your whole life is ruined. So you got off easy. Moving on to section 3176.1b, termination. When verbal warnings and or restrictions fail to achieve compliance, you see how it's written to instruct on progressive discipline. When verbal warnings and or restrictions fail to achieve compliance or fail to deter conduct by a visitor that, if committed by an inmate, would constitute a serious rules violation, the visit shall be terminated and documented in writing. And that's what I think is happening here. They're holding you to the standard they would hold me to. If I touch a correctional officer, it's the end of the world. It's the absolute end of the world. They can touch me however they want, as you witnessed with the Montez thing. But the second that I touch him or her, it is the absolute end of the world. So it may be that they're holding you to that right there. Termination. When verbal warnings and or restrictions fail to achieve compliance or fail to deter conduct by a visitor that, if committed by an inmate, would constitute a serious rules violation, the visit shall be terminated and documented in writing. But you never got a verbal warning. So they can't say a verbal warning failed to deter your conduct. They can't say that. That never happened.
I never got a verbal warning. It was not a problem in the moment for anybody. It was just a normal human interaction when someone's not looking at you and you want to interact.
Let's not get lost in the weeds. Substitution fees, 6 months, we need to apply that because we're saying 60 days, 12 months, 24 months. Revocation. That revocation says subsequent discovery of information that would have resulted in disapproval. That's not applicable here. And subsection G says the visitor and inmate shall be notified in writing of all formal warnings. That never happened. Terminations. That never happened. Suspensions. That never happened. And revocations. That's not going to happen. The notice shall clearly state the reason for the action and length of time any sanction will apply. The notification shall also include the signature of the official taking the action and advise the visitor of the right to appeal in accordance with Section 3179. The notification shall be provided to the visitor at the time of the action or mailed to the visitor's last known address within 5 working days of the action. Now let's make something clear to the audience. The appeals system, even if followed to a T, is going to take longer than Angela and Lily will be in town. And even if later on they say, okay, no harm, no foul, this was all a misunderstanding, can we let it go? Can you stop going on the live news talking about this? The damage is already done. They will have denied all of our visits, including our family visits.
Overnight.
And there won't be any recourse to change that.
I can't get.
Will be over. She'll be back in school. You won't have the time off. You won't have the money replaced that you lost. So if nothing else, just like they do to a prisoner when they come in a cell, search a cell in quotation marks and break my TV, and then I go through the appeals process and they replace it 6 months later. I spent 6 months without a TV. And probably begging somebody to pay $250 to buy me a new TV. And their solution to the problem is to go steal a TV from another inmate and give me that guy's TV to replace the TV they broke. This is a common theme. So let's keep moving. Violation of state law and institution property. Any violation of state law, misdemeanor, or felony committed on institution, facility grounds, or property by a visitor may be referred to prosecuting authorities. Have you been contacted by prosecuting authorities?
No.
I don't feel like this is a violation of state law. I think it takes intent to violate state law by touching somebody with a badge.
That was so not a big deal.
What's that?
They made a really massive deal, costing us months of visiting for the touching of 2 hands.
And your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Apparently. Real reason, it's not, but I just want to say, this is clearly, that wasn't the problem. The problem is that we tell the truth. And we're experiencing whistleblower retaliation, which is against the CDCR's own policies.
Trying to explain to people for years, even on the appeals forms, the 602, no action shall be taken against the prisoner for filing this appeal. But clearly, almost every time, some sort of retaliation is taken out on the prisoner.
And do you know why they do it?
Language is there in the rules to make it look good to the public, and the public buys it and keeps it up with line and sinker. That's what the practical reality on the ground is. Otherwise, we wouldn't have investigative services unit officers going into the warden's office and saying this is what's happening, and then being murdered for it by other people in a way that makes it almost look like suicide. Let me just say this. Correctional Officer Rodriguez didn't kill himself because he felt guilty about going into the warden's office at California State Prison Sacramento and telling the warden the truth about what was going on. He didn't feel guilty for getting that weight off of his shoulders. He probably felt relieved. That's not when you kill yourself.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Let's go a step further. Correctional Sergeant Steele didn't move to Missouri to get away from the people he was afraid of for going into the warden's office in the downtown Sacramento with his concerns about the participation in murders and other law violations going on. It just to kill himself and his guilt. He moved to get away to be safe. Same as Officer DJ Vodka. He went into hiding before he testified in front of Gloria Romero and Jackie Steer about this stuff. You know what I mean? Come on. I'll call you right back. I love you.
Okay. So I've been looking at the prison system in America now, a special focus on California, which is one of the better systems actually, and thanks to Gavin Newsom. And I've uncovered so many inappropriate abuses, and I've brought them to social media. I mean, I worked for several presidents. I'm a former White House intern. I'm an academic doctor. And I feel it's my duty as an ethical, moral American to bring attention to the abuses we're experiencing. And because of that, they're abusing me more. So that's why this is happening. This wasn't about like his shirt or the touching of the hand. This was setting a trap to cost us our summer and being unwilling to be reasonable and rational. Go ahead.
Back to what I was saying a minute ago, like, if there was no retaliation, those people wouldn't have probably been killed. And Officer Vodka wouldn't have had to go into hiding and show up to those hearings wearing body armor because he was afraid for his life.
He had to move out of state.
I mean, I remember reading in like the Fresno Bee or Stockton Record years ago from the corporate gladiator fights, an officer stole the videotape because it was being buried and covered up. And he was chased, a high-speed chase down the freeway by correctional officers from Corcoran all the way to the FBI field office in Sacramento. And he ran inside the lobby and asked for protection with this tape on his person. I mean, it's pretty clear what happened here. The thing is, the prisoners, we're a captive population.
And it's hidden.
Which means when we file a lawsuit, when you file a lawsuit, you can prosecute it, you can kind of stay away from them. Prisoners file these lawsuits and prosecute them, and they spend 5, 6, 7 years while the Attorney General's office drags it out, and every day or week they're harassed by correctional officers, including but not limited to the theft of their property, including all of their legal books and legal documents that they need to prosecute their case, and they're harassed to make them want to stop prosecuting the case. That's what happens inside. This is an everyday thing.
All of them should have body cams because they're extremely unprofessional and abusive as a group. Not all of them. There are a lot of good ones too, but there
I
are
mean, hell, look what happened to me at Donovan.
whistleblower
I mean,
retaliation.
you've seen the video. You've seen the video. That was dangerous contraband at best. That was no shoe term and 60 or 90 days.
What are you referring to? You need to clarify
I
what.
was charged with possession of a deadly weapon, the shoe term, and they tried to transfer me to a place where they have me murdered. I talked to the guy. I have a written affidavit from the guy in on the conspiracy to murder me for the correctional officers.
For the correctional officers.
Most people don't know what their life is worth. I know what my life is worth. A couple $1,000s of heroin and cell phones.
The abuse is taking place inside America's prisons is a humanitarian crisis, and they're not being watched.
Okay, so
they hide it.
Let's the law. Violation of state law on institution and facility property. Upon determination by the official in charge of visiting that a violation of state law has occurred, the visitor's access to the visiting program shall be suspended. Pending investigation, prosecution, service of any sentence by the courts. If the individual is not prosecuted or upon completion of any court-ordered sentence, approval to visit shall be reconsidered upon the visitor's written request. So they may be trying to make you reapply for visiting. This is kind of the same thing they did with Nikki when they didn't like that I had Nikki on my visiting list, so they removed her from my visiting list. And when I appealed that, they said that I am the one that requested it and that she had to fill out a new visiting form. And then Sacramento's appeals office said, no, you can't do that. And then they sent it back to be answered, and the person who did the action is the one who reviewed the appeal and denied it. And then Sacramento sent it back to Kim and said, no, you can't do that. You can't review it without complaining against yourself. And then her friend is the one that reviewed the complaint the next time and went and talked to her and decided against me and can't me off my business list. This seems like this sort of thing. If a court finds the individual not guilty or prior approval to visit shall be reinstated upon written request of the visitor. Again, that's going to be another visiting form. Regardless of the outcome of any referral to prosecuting authorities, future visits are subject to restrictions as provided in section 3176.1. Wow. Wow, it would appear that right there is probably what is happening here.
Wait, say that again?
They're probably asking this local. Okay, so let's talk about something else America doesn't quite understand. Federal funding to law enforcement departments and district attorneys' offices is dependent upon how much prosecution and volume of criminal cases they handle per year. So places that don't have large populations of normal people get prisons built in them, and their local judiciaries are then benefited by having an inmate population there. The staff are incentivized to refer cases to the district attorney's office for malicious and petty prosecutions so that they can ask the federal authorities and the federal government for additional funding so that they can, I don't know, buy themselves Traeger barbecues or whatever, or build new county jails, or purchase armored personnel carriers being auctioned off by the federal government because they're no longer necessary in Afghanistan because we pulled out. And they get them out of discounts. That federal funding goes right back to the feds. And police departments who don't need armored personnel carriers and anti-tank vehicles get them and militarize against their local populations. San Luis Obispo County is one of those counties. They don't have a lot going on. The news shows the most egregious of crimes every morning, and those amount to hit and runs and overdose deaths at the bathroom at the local beach. So most of their federal funding will come from cases of malicious and petty prosecution brought by the prison, which is why they catch people with sewing needles made from pieces of paperclip and then refer to the district attorney's office a case for possession of a deadly weapon, when we all clearly can see that that's a sewing needle, not a deadly weapon. Where cases get referred. I got a buddy.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
His name is JC. He was at work when the ISU raided the barracks at the camp.
What is ISU?
At 8 o'clock in the morning.
What does ISU stand for?
Oh, that's the Investigative Services Unit. They're pseudo law enforcement officials.
In the prison.
Work inside the institution and are charged with investigating crime. These are the same people I told you were taking that suicide victim's body out and were slamming his feet in the tailgate of their lowered four-door crew cab truck that they use as a hearse because he was too tall to fit, and their remedy for that was to repeatedly slam his feet in the tailgate to get him to fit.
Friendly suggestion, Shawn. Shawn.
Vidor, V-I-D-O-R, that was his name. Vidor. What's his last name? What?
A friendly suggestion is, because we may have people unfamiliar with the alphabet soup of the CDCR, the California, see, I just did it. Let's try to state acronyms, and because other people may not be able to follow if we use a bunch of acronyms.
Sure, absolutely right. So, why did ISU come up? So, the Investigative Services Unit apparently busted in the doors to the barracks that they lived at in the camp across the street. 8 o'clock in the morning. I think he had been at work and he was asleep. And a bunch of people panicked and they threw their contraband everywhere in a common area, like the day room or something. And they woke him up and they handcuffed him because a piece of plastic with the residue of, they call it wax, but I think it's technically called hashish. It's a marijuana residue, so it's a still marijuana residue, was on that piece of plastic. Now, he's been fighting fires. He was in the fire camp. He's supposed to be eligible to go home this month. And he's not the only guy. I know a guy that's already been kept past his release date for something similar to this. His release date is now changed by 6 months while the local district attorney's office investigates whether or not he has committed a crime. And so I just got my 2-minute warning, by the way. I will call back after I log out. And he will remain in prison to the tune of, what did we say, $365 per day?
Yeah.
He will remain in prison past his earned release date that he earned fighting fires because they picked up a piece of plastic that may or may not have had marijuana hashish residue on it and are waiting on the lab to respond and determine whether or not it did, so that the district attorney may consider prosecuting him for what fucking is that even a misdemeanor? I was pretty much under the impression that a residue was not a chargeable offense.
Well, marijuana is legal in the state of California, so maybe he broke a prison rule.
Yes, but not for people in prison.
Yeah, sure. He broke the rule. He broke a rule.
So what I'm getting at here is that we could be in limbo for months while the district attorney decides whether or not you committed a felony or a misdemeanor, and then they could potentially take you off my visiting list and never let you visit me again. It sounds like if what I'm reading right here is what is applicable.
I like the video
I'm
footage.
just now realizing that right now. I'm so sorry.
The amount of, what breaks my heart is that all the staff who are good people who go along with it and don't say anything and speak up. That's the part that gets me.
We really need to rally the troops here. Anybody who isn't afraid needs to get involved and write and email the Secretary of Corrections and the Warden and the Office of the Inspector General about this. Yeah,
I think I'm going to start a change.org petition to stop staff misconduct in CDCR prisons, and the rampant abuse and retaliation and excessive overblown mountains made out of molehills. It's not the California model, and that the California model is supposed to be here now, and they're not doing it on the front lines. Boots on the ground are not doing it. They're still in the old school where they think it's their job to abuse and traumatize us. I think Shawn got cut off. Okay, if you can hear me, I can't hear you, so I'm going to hang up. If you've made it this far, gosh, we've been going over now. Shawn's tablet does this thing where if he's been going for an hour, they may kick him out, make him like restart and re-log in and all of this. Like, so we're only allowed 15-minute phone calls, and he's forced to go through this process on the hour if he's talking more than an hour. So the bottom line here, as someone who worked in government service for a long time and some pretty senior, I worked for Bush, I worked for Obama, former White House intern, worked for the governor of California at one point as an intern. Government is supposed to help us. And what they're doing is subjugating and abusing us. And I really feel compelled to tell the truth of it, because I realize that that's the only way the abuse ever stops. Like, we have to confront it. You don't just go along with it. But a lot of people are too afraid to confront it because of the retaliation like we're experiencing. And that retaliation is illegal. Look at the Office of the Inspector General's website for the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. It will make it explicit that whistleblowers are supposed to be protected. But boots on the ground don't see it that way. It's Team Green versus Team Blue. And Team Green will win. That's what they think. Although they haven't. I don't lose. I don't lose because I'm in the right. And the truth all comes out. They want very much for me to not share this information publicly. They want to silence me. They want to intimidate me. They want to abuse me into compliance with their abuse. And I just absolutely refuse. So I just want to bring attention to this so that all Californians and taxpayers in the state of California understand that they are paying for government employees to abuse and harass us when we don't deserve it. And they're not rehabilitating. What they're doing is ineffective. It leads to more crime. It's not rehabilitative. It's not humane. It's not effective. It is in direct opposition with common sense approaches frequently. There's a culture of fear, silence, and violence baked in, and mediocrity as well. When I go into the California Men's Colony, it feels like I'm in 1988. Like, it looks like 1988. The thinking and the approaches have not evolved and modernized in decades. So I time travel when I go into the California Men's Colony, and it seems like the leadership there is fine with keeping things really antiquated and inhumane and unprofessional, rather than going with the California model, as Governor Newsom has asked them to. And Danny Samuel, I heard him say out, the warden of the California Men's Colony, has said explicitly himself that his CMC is not one of the pilot programs for the California model, one of the locations that's required to do it, but that he's opted to do the California model. And they display it on their screens for all the visitors to see that this is now a new California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. There's a new version of it called the California model that's supposed to be here. But it's theoretical at the headquarters level, and boots on the ground, it's absolutely not happening. There's still rampant abuses and fabrications and official reports. Really just unbelievable behaviors that shouldn't be taking place that have become normalized. I think Shawn just messaged me. So I'm going to keep going. Shawn's going to call. He's going to try again. He's going to keep trying to call. Let me just tell him, okay. So I'm just raising a red flag. That's what this is. This is me waving a red flag to just share that any of us could become a victim of the government. Any of us could, not pay a parking fine, or miss a court date, or write a bounce check, or get pulled over. And there's so much that could happen to any of us, and we could get sucked into the government's criminal justice system, which is really a criminal injustice system, if you ask me. any of us could become a victim of this broken machine and this malevolent monster known as the criminal justice system. Any of us could become a victim of it. And then once you get into the carceral setting, once you get into prison or jail, the abuses that take place just will never stop. Microaggressions, physical beatings, sexual assaults, fabricated reports to keep people imprisoned longer. There's just a culture of we're going to abuse these prisoners and we're going to win and no one's ever going to find out and no one's ever going to tell. And the reason they have a problem with me is because I tell the truth. You could see right here, I have the word truth tattooed on my skin permanently. It's my top value is just truth. What's the truth? When you're not grounded in reality, when you're not grounded in truth, it's a kind of insanity. For me, the truth is what keeps me sane. You know, what is the truth? And if a system like the carceral system has room for improvement, like if it needs to get better, the way you make it better is you first start from a base of understanding. What is the truth of the status quo? What's going on right now? And there are so many players in the current broken, dysfunctional, malevolent system that don't want the truth to be known, because if it's known, they're going to look real bad. And so that's why they're just hounding me with retaliation, trying to scare and silence me into being quiet. And I refuse. I refuse. I went to government for 15 years because I believed government should help people. It should be a force for good in the world. And the reality of what's happening in the criminal justice system is government's not doing good. They're abusing us. So they'll have job security and financial gain. And they want to keep their job. They don't want to have to change jobs or change industries. So if anyone speaks up and tells the truth of their abusive behaviors, they'd rather just silence and abuse that person further rather than change their culture and their system. There's a lot of rigid thinking and inability and unwillingness to become more ethical, moral, humane, effective, efficient, transparent. It's why I'm launching the Prison Transparency Project. Check out prisontransparency.com.
To accept this call, thank you for using Global Texting.
All right, I'm back.
So we've been going more than an hour. We've been going more.
Your text. Okay.
We've been going more than an hour. So I think we need to begin to think about if we need to say anything else, and then we need to wrap up. Last night we did 2 hours.
Okay.
This morning's another hour. I've made some content on my own. I think we're getting our point across that there are massive abuses of power taking place by badge wearers in the state of California, and that this information needs to be widely known so that it will stop. And so I'm doing all I can to spread the truth.
Okay, so let me get to the nuts and bolts of what I think we should do moving forward. I mean, do we agree that our goal is to salvage as much of our visiting time and our family visits possible? Is that our goal?
Yes. Yes. I want to see you. And so does Lily. Lily's been waiting a year to see you again.
I want to see you too. I miss you guys a lot. I needed this.
I need this too.
So with that in mind, I believe that there are two parallel lines of action that probably should be taken at this point. I think you need to contact the public information officer who gave you his card yesterday and explain what your intentions are, and copy in the warden of this institution as well as the Secretary of Corrections, Jeff McCover, by email, and explain what your intentions are and what you would like. And also a high view description of what happened and how that conflicts with everything that you have already been taught about coming into the prison. Like, nobody told you can't touch somebody. In fact, you shook hands with CDCR officials and frequently have touched already here on grounds. There's no reason to know that.
And when I did it, nobody told me.
Of that molehill.
And no one was harmed. No one told me I broke a rule in the moment.
Right.
They fabricated a report saying I laid my hands on an officer. I beat him up, and I didn't. Go ahead.
I absolutely agree. And then give that until Monday morning.
Yes.
And then if by, I don't know, close of business 4 o'clock Monday, make a plan to go to Sacramento, go downtown to 1515 S Street, and talk to whoever you can there in person and try to get some traction. At the same time, planning to go to the address for the office of the Inspector General. I think it's on Old Placerville Road in Sacramento. And also have plans to go back downtown to the KCRA 3 news station, I believe, is where that reporter Lysee, Lysee, Mitri, MITRI, reports for on the television. And she is the one that reported in back-to-back reports that the California Department of Corrections was burying staff misconduct, allowing friends and fuck buddies to review allegations of staff misconduct and exonerate their friends. And then the Secretary of Corrections came out in public very quickly and disputed that claim. And then she also reported very quickly that the OIG, the Office of Inspector General, came out that very day and said, no, he just lied to the public. What he said isn't true. This is still very much a problem. And see if she would like to put you on television, do a follow-up. I will also turn on my television and watch. There is a investigative reporter guy here that likes to out companies and people who do bad business and just, he likes to out people for shitty things. I'm going to try to give you his hotline, and maybe you can call that and see if you can make a mockery of these people locally on the news if necessary. Because
it's already all over TikTok and Facebook.
Families should know what they're doing at work to earn their paycheck.
Yeah.
So that they can decide whether or not they're honorable, ethical, moral, and that they should be proud of them.
Shameful. What they did yesterday was shameful.
These people go out there and they tell the public that they're fighting crime. People keeping people safe, walking the toughest beat in the state around dangerous criminals, and that's not actually the case. What they're doing is a scam. It's a racket. Honestly, it violates the RICO Act. I'm telling you. They conspire, they commit crimes together in order to benefit financially. And they do benefit financially, not just by fleecing the taxpayers, but what happens when the cop comes in and searches my cell, scratches my fan on the surface with his key, scratches out my name, and then says that I scratched out the name on a fan and must have brought this fan off the tier, and he's confiscating it from me so that he can put it on his desk and blow himself with cold air during his shift because he's hot. That is theft. And his buddies help him with that. Therefore, they act in concert, and that violates the Federal Racketeering Influence Corrupt Organizations Act. The same act being used against the Aryan Brotherhood, the same act being used against the MA, the same act being used against biker gangs. This is RICO stuff, to be quite honest. Put it out there. If the way that this has been able to be so pervasive over so long a time is they've done everything they can to keep the public from knowing what is actually happening here. That's why they fought the tablets so long. That's why they fight so hard against body cams. Let's be very clear. CMC has very, very, very minimal camera coverage. Only in the PIA areas to make sure that we're not having sex with PIA staff or stealing PIA goods. And in the visiting area where they can film us and try to charge us with crimes. It's not for our benefit. It's not to keep us safe. It's to our detriment. But twice while I've been here, in the summer of 2022, and again about a year ago after I came back from court, I watched different contractors come in.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
come into the California men's colony with clipboards as a group, walk around the entirety of the institution looking for blind spots and mounting positions for cameras, for surveillance. And both times, the rumor was they're finally going to get cameras here, so we finally can't be lied about anymore. And both times, they found some way to torpedo and undermine the contract to prevent cameras from coming to CMC.
And CMC was one of the last prisons to get tablets for the inmates because of the staff resistance to change and modernizing and being progressive.
Yeah, whenever this time they were scheduled to come install, the staff started calling and they couldn't. Like, what is that? What is that?
They sabotage headquarters decisions locally.
And the crazy thing about that is, the craziest part of that is, every single one of them got paid full wages to stay home and protest undermine the will.
Oh, and I want to add something else. The Office of Inspector General for the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation earlier this year released a report showing the massive problem of staff covering up for reports of staff misconduct. They cover up for each other. So the new rules are when there is a report of staff misconduct, it's supposed to go to headquarters. But the CMC, the California Men's Colony staff, don't abide by the headquarters policy. And they,
why did Shawn Rodriguez come to interview me about the conduct allegations against somebody's father?
They cover up for each other. They will never admit that a staff member has been abusive, even when it's blatantly clear they have been. And even when there's eyewitnesses, and even when it's obvious. And she's fabricated reports as well, which could have cost Shawn years longer in prison. And that's a fireable offense they have not dealt with.
I have heard anecdotal reports from prisoners that are eyewitnesses to custody staff throwing manufactured weapons into cells and then arresting the prisoner who occupies that cell. I also have watched with my own eyes 2 separate correctional officers that work on this yard utilize inmates to plant drugs and weapons on prisoners and in places so that they could discover those items and write reports. This is 100%
They all
true.
must have body cams. There's so much unprofessional behavior.
Body cams isn't my point. I'm letting the people listening know that if something happens to me, I'm telling you right this second what happened, what it is. I've been in this cell right here, this same one, 6220, for 2.5 years, since the end of April 2022, with 0 problems. I've been through mass searches where they call outside agencies and bring 13 vehicles with 20 dogs. Through mass searches where we sit up there in that chow hall from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. while they search 300 cells in the building with 60 correctional officers. Never once have I been in trouble. Never once. Mostly they just take my trash and they leave.
No
I don't
gangs.
do things to get in trouble.
Shawn, no gangs, no drugs,
I go
programming.
to the hole. What?
I said you don't do drugs, you're not in a gang, you program, you stay out of trouble, but we tell the truth, we're whistleblowers
Okay,
when we see abuse.
On my wall, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 48 certificates of completion on my wall right now for the programs and educational milestones I have achieved since 2017. I clearly don't spend my time doing stupid, dummy shit. I really want to go home and have a life.
This call and your
he doesn't even deserve to be
monitored
there.
and recorded.
So if I go to the hole soon, or my cell is subject to a, in quotations, random cell search, or some sort of contraband is found that I get in trouble for, I want you all to know that based on history, it's not true. It's just not true.
Crimes being committed by badge wearers are truly unbelievable. And they have no oversight, and they have no monitoring, and they cover up for each other, and they abuse us, and they get away with it. They break the laws, and there's no punishment. They treat us like shit when we don't deserve it, and there are no consequences. Well, now there are going to be consequences.
Here's how good I am on my peer. All
The
the
truth.
who know me. I have the window that opens. The window that opens. I have tied to outside my window a 6-quart plastic tote bin, filled it with dirt, and I'm going marigolds and mint in it. I have a planter box attached to my window. Who does that? I do that. It gets sunshine and I water it, and that's how I spend my time, and they don't bother me about it. Sergeants, lieutenants, captains walk past it. They don't say anything to me because I program. I behave myself. I do well, not hurting anybody. That should be an indicator for the people listening of how I behave inside this prison. So if that changes on the spot, as pretty soon, we all know what happened.
Now, what will they fabricate next? What lies and what lies and exaggerations are they going to make up next?
The soldering iron I was using in the video on YouTube, I was using to fix not just inmate property, but staff property after they have the staff.
And
if you go on Help Free Shawn, you'll see what are called laudatory chronos, reports from officers and sergeants documenting and thanking me for fixing state property like computers, buffers, laminators. And it's perfectly okay to have that soldering iron until they didn't like what I was doing, and then it was a deadly weapon, which is a bit hypocritical. But I did. I violated the rules, but I didn't have a deadly weapon. That's an example of what I fear will happen this go round. I'll call back one more time, but I'm sure you want to wrap it up. I love you, and I'll see you.
okay.
Bye.
Why should you care? Why should you care? Well, almost 1% of Americans are incarcerated. We mass incarcerate in this country more than any country in the entire world. Almost 1% of us are incarcerated. Almost 2 million, or around 2 million at any given time. And there's another about 6 million under government monitoring, parole and probation. And so there's a sizable portion of America that's being victimized by government. Now, some people definitely deserve prison. I'm not advocating for the murderers, and the child molesters, and the rapists. But there are, drug addicts given life sentences, life without parole. At least in the past, there have been. I know someone who just got out after 27 years because he was caught with meth 3 times in the 90s. He was a drug addict, given life without possibility of parole. And then he finally just got out due to some changes in the law. 27 years for being a drug addict in a land of drugs. Prison is filled with drugs. The staff bring them in for a profit. Make a quick buck. Break some laws. No consequence.
Shawn
Incarcerated individual at California Men's
I won't back down, and I'm going to stand my ground. What they're doing is wrong. It needs to stop. We need to tell the truth about it. And that's what we're doing.
All right. Well. So one of the last things I wanted to say to listeners, and this is one of, I think, the most important ones, is please remember that the only thing necessary for evil to prevail is for good men to stand by and do nothing, and that the price good men pay for indifference to public affairs is to be ruled by evil men. And I would encourage anybody listening who has 5 minutes of time to give to this, to utilize the information provided by Angela, to contact my warden, and the Secretary of Corrections.
And what are their
And
names?
let them know how you feel about what is taking place now.
Danny Samuel is the warden at the California Men's Colony who has restricted our visits. The only time we can visit the family is in the summer because I live on the East Coast of the kid. And he's restricted our visits for 6. Please let me finish. Let me finish. Let me finish. Okay. Danny Samuel made this decision to restrict our visits for 2 months. I guess because Shawn didn't have a shirt or I touched a hand. This is an inappropriate abuse, and it's whistleblower retaliation that Danny Samuel has decided to engage in. You can reach him at Danny, DANNY, Samuel, SAMUEL, at cdcr.ca.gov. You may also reach the head of the Department of Corrections in California, Jeff McComber, at Jeff, Jeff.M as in Matthew, ACOM, B as in boy, ER, Jeff.McComber at cdcr.ca.gov. I'm also going to be making a change.org petition to stop staff misconduct and abuse in California prisons. So please be a part of the movement, make your voices heard, and let our government officials know that the abuses that they're doing while we pay for them to help us are absolutely unacceptable. Shawn, do you have any final thoughts? Show them that you're watching and you care. Please just send an email, sign the petition, get involved. We gotta let the abusers know and the bullies know that what they're doing is not okay. And as long as we cower and don't say anything and let them abuse us, the beatings will continue, figuratively.
Yeah, the beatings will continue until morale improves. So long. That's how they built cars. That's how they got it to where the taxpayers paid them $40 an hour to do this. At base pay of $36 an hour, 6 months later you can be up to 40. And you don't even need a GED as long as you sign a promise to get it in service. And they get paid $40 an hour to do this.
And they're so afraid of losing.
Are making more than that.
They're all so afraid of losing their jobs or having to find a new job because they have low skills and they don't want to lose a secure government job with pensions and benefits and bonuses and union protections, that they're willing to engage in acts of violence, human torture, human subjugation, modern day slavery, and rampant abuses. They're willing to do that for their own job security. That's the truth of it. We got to change it. I'm so pissed about it.
It's coming off the phone, and well, wait a minute. I feel like there's a stakeholder here who hasn't been heard. And I wonder if you do or don't feel comfortable with the world hearing the little girl side of this.
I do not feel comfortable putting my daughter on video with regard to this. No, I don't. But I'll give you the summary of it. She repeatedly broke down crying, needed excessive comfort. She wanted to sit on my lap. She was putting her head down on the table and just weeping openly. She found the whole thing very scary. She thought they were exceptionally inappropriate. Even her 7-year-old brain could tell like what they're doing is abusive. She's been waiting a year to see her stepdad, who she loves very much. We were really looking, I mean, our whole summer was designed around spending time together as a family. And now the prison.
So wait a minute, let's back up a second. It's worth noting that you gave her choices of what she could spend this summer doing.
Oh, and I didn't tell you, Shawn, yesterday. Okay, I'd love to share this example. So we have about 4 weeks in California, and we were going to spend a lot of time. We were going to have 11 days together as a family in that 4 weeks. And
she chose that over Mexico.
And I'm not done.
She chose that over Disneyland.
Yes, and I also overseeing other family members too, to be honest. Like she really wants to spend time with you, Shawn. And we have to go back to Virginia for her birthday, which is the end of July. And then we've got about 2 weeks left. So after Lily's birthday, we have about 2 weeks together left for summer. We were debating, do we go to Disney World? Do we go visit family in Miami? Do we go to New Jersey? Do we go to Africa? What are we going to do? And Lily, I didn't tell you this yet, Shawn, and this was all preceded, obviously, all of the abusive treatment we received yesterday. But Lily really wanted to come back a second time to spend the rest of her summer here to see you. Yeah.
Not fair.
Now she's not going to get any time. And now the only next opportunity Lily will have, because we have to fly cross country to be here, and she has school. So next summer. So that means that the state has forced a stepdaughter and a stepfather from being in contact with one another in person, which is incredibly rehabilitative and helpful. They've restricted, they're making it so we won't have been able to see, the two of them wouldn't have been able to see each other for 2 years because of this overblown, inappropriate, dehumanizing, cruel, and unusual punishment that we're receiving on behalf of the badge holders. So we should wrap up. I just, I'm tired of these battles. I'm tired of the battles. And I also feel like I have to keep fighting them because someone needs to tell the truth. Someone's got to do it. I volunteered as tribute to be the soccer mom, White House intern, academic doctor, social media influencer, author, speaker, content creator. I volunteered as tribute to tell the truth of what's happening in America's prisons. And because of the truth telling I do.
I didn't volunteer.
I know.
But somehow I always seem to be part of it. And I don't ever get to stop.
And we don't seek out trouble.
I have the luxury of.
They target us because we speak the truth. So I'm really tired of the whistleblower retaliation that they're illegally victimizing us with. I'm really tired of all the hassles.
Also remember, we're not new to this. We're a seasoned team. We've already been through this. Remember, for instance, up in Folsom and all over that dummy shit and try to convince you that I was fucking other women and visiting me and all that crazy shit. And we survived that, so we will survive this too. The first of it. Okay.
Yeah, and now I'm a mom with a 7-year-old in tow that had a certain plan for our summer, and now I'm sort of having to go. It's ruining our summer. Like now we have to change our whole plans last minute, and I don't know if they're gonna change. If we request that visits be allowed again, I bring attention to this. Maybe then I got to change my plans back. And so the amount of stress this has caused me, the mental anguish, the sleepless nights, the blood pressure medication, it's all too much, and it's not what government is for. Government is here to help citizens, not victimize us. And I feel like a victim of the California men's colony. And Shawn's a victim of the criminal justice system. We're both victims of this broken monstrosity. And because we tell the truth of it, we're being targeted. Their definition of rehabilitation is when you take their abuse and don't say anything. And if you say something against abuses, then they call that not being rehabilitated.
What I want you to do now is try to figure out how you girls can go have some fun. Do something to take your minds off it. Maybe come back later and cut some pieces out of this and post it in some places. And we'll talk again later.
Okay. All right. I love you. I think we're going to go to the beach.
All right. I love you also, young lady.
Oh, she can't hear.
See you soon, I hope.
She can't hear you. Okay. I didn't want her hearing all this. Okay. I love you. Talk to you later.
No, I love her. And I'll talk to you girls later.
Okay. Okay. Bye. So that's the truth of what happened at the California Men's Colony on June 28th, 2024. Correctional officers, Lieutenant Shawn Robinson and Lieutenant E. Livingston were the culprits, along with Warden Danny Samuel, who has now restricted our visiting for 2 months. because I don't know if it's because Shawn didn't have the shirt that they required and they wouldn't give it to him, and so that's the offense, or if the offense was that I tried to get a correctional officer's attention when I was trying to speak with him and he wouldn't look at me, and I briefly touched his hand. So they're calling it that I put my hands on an officer. And I've shaken hands, like, and it wasn't a big deal, and no one even said anything in the moment. So this feels like whistleblower retaliation. Clearly, that's what this is. If you check out my other videos at Help Free Shawn Rodriguez on TikTok, or if you go to Facebook and check out my videos, you'll see that I've been exposing the corruption and the workplace abuses and the staff misconduct, largely at the California Men's Colony, as well as the criminal justice system more largely. And because I dared to speak the truth, they're not going to let our family have time together. And that's the bottom line of it. It's highly inappropriate. And I plan to spread this information far and wide, and I hope you all do too. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good day.